Hey everyone, welcome to the investor.bet NRL Round 4 betting trends preview. In this video, I'm going to go through all 8 games coming up this weekend and look at these matchups from a betting perspective and the history between these two sides. Who's been winning, who's been covering the spread, what have the odds been last time these sides met, and have their games been going over or under the total points line, and what that number was. And also go through early in the week what I'm thinking of how I'm approaching betting on these games. So far this season, a few things I wanted to highlight from a betting perspective. When it comes to teams winning games, home sides this year are 15-9, favorites at 18-6, but importantly, favorites when they're on the handicap minus half a point to -6 are 11-2 win-loss records. So those teams that are only small favorites have been performing really well and winning those games. When it comes to covering the spread, home sides are 14-10, and then favorites are 13-11, and totals as it currently stands this year are 12-12. 12 games have gone over, 12 have gone under, but importantly, day games 2 over, 6 under, night games 10 over, 6 under. So day games going under, night games going over is what it's looking like at the completion of round number 3. All this information and the full breakdown for every single side and where their games are going over or under as at home, as a favorite, day, night, etc. All that information is updated every week alongside all the team and opponent stats in the NRL Best Bets membership, which includes all my bets and the NRL Bet Finders. Looking at the games for this week, Thursday night, the Rabbitohs, big underdogs against the Penrith Panthers, who are without Nathan Cleary. Alex Johnston comes in for the Rabbitohs for his first game of the season. But Penrith, $1.25, minus 11.5, looking to avoid losing 3 consecutive games for the first time since 2018. And I think they definitely get the job done here, even without Cleary. They have won 7 of the past 8 against the Rabbitohs, covered 6 of the past 7. And last week, when they lost Cleary around the 8th, 9th minute mark, from that point, Penrith actually played better. Now they've had a week to prepare, knowing that they're going to be without him. I think they'll get the job done here, back in Sydney against the Rabbitohs. Keep in mind, even though Penrith are only 1-2 overall this season, all 3 games that they've played against the Sharks, Roosters, and Storm were the fellow top 4 teams from last season. So this matchup against the Rabbitohs, who finished second last year, is a lot easier for them. Rabbitohs also will give the Panthers an opportunity to get their defense than what we've seen so far. The Rabbitohs have been pretty poor in attack so far this season. The 2 games they've won against the Dolphins and Dragons, neither of those sides have won any other games outside of that. And Rabbitohs play this very controlled attacking style, which the Panthers defense should be able to shut down in a similar way that the Sharks were able to shut them down last week. So I like Penrith to get over the line. I feel like the handicap at minus 11.5 is about right. If Cleary was playing, you would expect to see a minus 17.5, minus 18.5 line for this game. So if you do think Penrith will play just as good or very close to it without Cleary, then there may be some value for you in that minus 11.5. The total currently is 48.5 for this game. 5 of the past 7 between these two sides have gone over. Right now, I don't really have a huge opinion on the total for this game. I think the biggest thing is Penrith should win, but whether they need to score points to overcome the Rabbitohs scoring because their defense has been lackluster or Penrith defend really well, I'd lean towards Penrith putting in a good defensive performance, and from that perspective, slightly lean towards the unders. So just because these sides have a history of going over, I'm a little bit hesitant to go into backing the over. Penrith have scored 42 and 34 points in their games against the Rabbitohs last season, but definitely have a bit of a compromised attack going into this game. I think it'll be a more defensive mindset for both of these sides. The early game on Friday night, the Roosters back at home against the Gold Coast Titans. Roosters coming off a loss and what's been a bit of an up and down start to the season for them. $1.58 minus 4.5 against the Titans, who are coming off a big win last week against the Newcastle Knights, and prior to that conceded 40 against the Bulldogs. This game largely depends on whether Gold Coast can replicate their home form on the road down in Sydney against the Roosters side. That'll be keen to bounce back and bring a stronger lineup into this game than they did last week over in New Zealand. Roosters also have the extra day's rest coming into this game. The past 5 between these two sides have gone over. So at 50.5, I'd definitely be leaning towards the over. The concern slightly though is the Roosters' attack last week was very, very lackluster. However, that was due to the Warriors' forward pack controlling field position in that game. And also the Roosters giving away so many penalties and set restarts, which made it difficult for them to get much attacking play. But I would be leaning towards the over. Roosters have also won the past 11 versus Gold Coast and covered the past 3. When they met last season, it was late in the year at the Gold Coast. Roosters won 48 points to 22, so 70 points in that game, cleared a 54.5 point total. This will be the Titans' first game at the new Allianz Stadium. They haven't played there since 2017. I don't think there'll be a great deal between these sides. I think it's going to be a close game with lean towards it being higher scoring. The later game, the Dolphins versus Broncos, are being played at Suncorp Stadium, so effectively a home game for the Broncos. They are big favourites here, $1.20 minus 13.5, and we have a 53.5 point total. Last season in round 26, the Dolphins won this matchup 40 points to 6, when the Broncos were $1.46 and 7.5 point favourites. Off the way these teams are playing this season, this is a game Broncos really should be winning, and I think would be very, very disappointed if they were to drop this game. Dolphins have been beaten up by the Rabbitohs, Knights, and Tigers so far this season. This is their toughest matchup that they've faced so far, and the Broncos, back-to-back weeks at home, they played the Cowboys last week, won 26 points to 16, and will be keen to go 3-1 to start the season. Overall, Broncos have won 3 of the 4 games against the Dolphins, but Dolphins have been covering. This game is the biggest spread we've seen between these two sides, so the shortest that Brisbane effectively have been against Redcliffe. So it kind of shows where these teams' trajectories are heading. Broncos had that bit of a lull last season, 2024, and the Dolphins were able to grab that one game, but early on in the season, Brisbane did beat them 28 points to 14. I'd like the Broncos to get over the line here with a total at 53.5. I'm not sure if there's been any movement with the expected range. It's come down to 51.5 currently. I would slightly be leaning towards the under, but this game is definitely dependent on weather conditions. Dolphins bring the same side into this game. For the Broncos, Tony Staggs comes back into the team. That's probably our biggest news there for the Broncos. But overall, the Dolphins, just right now, the way their attack's playing, don't have enough points in them to be able to beat the Broncos. So unless there's a major turnaround, they're not going to be able to put up a big enough score to win this game. And their only hope is for it to be a very low-scoring grind, but that tends to not be the way the Broncos play. The Dragons versus Melbourne Storm. Dragons coming off the bye get to face the Storm, who they did beat last season, round 22 down in Melbourne. The Dragons won that game as $6.50 underdogs, 18 points to 16. Storm on the road here though, $1.38 favourites, minus 7.5. This is a game against the Dragons side who haven't won a game so far this season. Even though they're coming off the bye, they have been beaten by the Bulldogs and Rabbitohs. This is obviously the toughest test so far this season. Aside from their last meeting last year, if you go back a bit further, the Storm have won 5 of the past 7, so it hasn't been a consistent trend against the Storm. It was just kind of that one slip-up game late last season. Dragons, though, have covered 4 of the past 6, but we're not seeing like a huge line that we've seen in previous games where Melbourne have been minus 15.5, minus 23.5, 16.5, 18.5. That's what it's been over the past 4 games. So all the way down to minus 7.5. No Jerome Hughes, Nick Meaney, or Nelson Asafa-Solomona for the Storm. Hence why this line is, and this market is a lot closer than you would expect for a Storm side who big win over the Eels and then beat the Panthers off the bye. And then the Dragons, who are 0-2 to start the season. But even with home field advantage, I still think the Storm will get over the line and win this game and cover for those players out. I expect Cam Munster to have a bigger role here in this Storm halves without Jerome Hughes. 7 of the past 9 between these two sides have gone over the total. Last time they met, it was 51.5. That was in Melbourne. Last time they played in New South Wales was round 25, 2023, and we had a 44.5 point total. So fairly high number considering their previous meetings. So far this year, both teams, each of their 2 games, have combined for 48 or more points. So if that kind of continues, then it should go very, very close to this number. But currently, just couldn't back it with confidence, prefer to lean towards the Storm to be winning. The following game on Saturday afternoon, the Cowboys at home against Canberra. Cowboys 0-3 to start the season, but do start favourites in this matchup against the side that they've won the past 6 games against. Right now, or early in the week, it was $1.91 a piece. Cowboys have moved into very slight favourites over the last day or so. Cowboys, as I said, 0-3 to start the season, haven't looked great at all, losing to the Seagulls, Sharks, and Broncos. And the Raiders, who started the season with 2 really good wins, were grounded last week by the Seagulls. However, if you watch the review of that game, the penalties and discipline and that kind of thing really hurt the Raiders in that matchup. And I think that'll be an area they clean up this week. Don't think there's a great deal between these two sides. If Canberra can get back to their form and be more disciplined, I think this is a good opportunity for them to win. However, they just have that really poor record going up to Townsville and playing the Cowboys, and a poor record overall against them. The last time they played there, round 24 last season, North Queensland won 42-4. The game prior to that was round 1, 2023, when they played in Townsville, and it was 19-18 in favour of the Cowboys. Good news for the Raiders is they get Joseph Tarpany back into their forward pack, which will help a lot. The question you kind of have to ask yourself is, can Canberra replicate their form in Vegas and their form in their first home game against the Broncos and do that on the road? They couldn't do it last week at Manly, and now can they do it against the Cowboys? I think no matter what, this is going to be a close game. Cowboys really struggle to score, and they're okay defensively without being great. And then the Raiders, they've shown they can put points on the board, and they've shown they can defend well in patches. But the consistency is the question mark you have to ask yourself for this game. Historically, 7 of the past 8 head-to-head have gone under. At 49.5, I'd definitely be leaning towards the under in this game. Also, the underdog has covered 7 of the past 8 head-to-head. So right now, there's not a great deal between these two sides. By Saturday afternoon, there may be a more clear-cut favourite. We'll see, but you have that underdog trend there as well, which currently favors the Raiders. Last game on Saturday night, the Sharks at home against the Bulldogs. Sharks big favorites here, minus 11.5, $1.27. They've won 6 of the past 7 against the Bulldogs and covered 2 of the past 3. Sharks dropped their opening game against the Panthers, but it bounced back with 2 pretty dominant wins against the Cowboys and Rabbitohs. Bulldogs are a tougher opponent than both of those sides. However, the Sharks find this matchup against the Bulldogs at an ideal time for them with the Bulldogs' current injuries. The Canterbury were hardly impressive, but were able to get the win and go to 3-0 on the season. Still one of only 2 undefeated sides when they beat the Eels last week. However, they have played the Dragons, Titans, and Eels so far. All 3 bottom of the table sides. Now they face the Sharks for a definite top 4 contender. I don't think they're going to be quite at a good enough level to win this game, like the Sharks, to run out winners and do it fairly comfortably. So far this season, the Sharks have shown a habit of improving their first half performances, building leads, and then coasting. That's what they did against the Rabbitohs and also against the Cowboys. The game against the Panthers was very, very close at halftime. 6 of the past 7 meetings have been by 12 plus point margins. The only one that wasn't was when the Bulldogs won by Matt Burton field goal last season in round 17. But the previous games, Sharks were winning them by big margins. Wouldn't surprise me to see the Sharks run out and win this game by double digits, especially at home. It's definitely an important game for them when you look at their schedule following this matchup. 4 of the past 6 head-to-head have gone under the total points line. At 46.5, I do think that number's probably spot on. So far this season, the Sharks are 1-2 to the under, Bulldogs 2-1 to the over. But at 46.5, I'd slightly lean towards the under, as I think the Bulldogs are going to have to implement a similar game plan to last week against the Eels, where they try and turn it into a defensive grind, and the Sharks are already a side that is very strong defensively, so I think the Bulldogs are going to struggle to score. First of 2 games on Sunday, Manly huge favourites here, minus 18.5, $1.12 against the Parramatta Eels. Between these two sides, the Eels actually have a good record. They've won 4 of the past 6 against Manly, but the way these sides are at going into this game, they're a long, long way apart from where they're at. Tom Trbojevic comes back into the side for Manly, which is a huge in for them, and they'll have too many points in this game for the Eels. We saw the Bulldogs only scored the 3 tries against Parramatta last week, but once again, Bulldogs are trying to play that contained attacking style and win the game on the back of their defense. Manly aren't going to do that. Home team has a really good record in this game as well to favour Manly that little bit more. They've won 12 of the past 14 and the home side's covered 11 of those 14. Also, 11 of the past 14 head-to-head have gone over. So not only have we got the biggest handicap game of the season, but we've also got the biggest total at 55.5, which is very high. Like, Manly could put up 40 points, which they've done twice this season, and that'll get it very close. But how many points are in the Eels? That's the big question mark. If I was to choose between taking the handicap or taking over 55.5, I'd lean towards the Seagulls on the handicap. Or if I was very keen on the over, I'd take the Seagulls total points line or team total instead, just because this is a very high number at 55.5. You can see their previous meetings, 44.5, 43.5 were the lines for that game. And obviously they've been going over and you got to adjust for that. But this is a very significant adjustment. And so far this season, we've seen the Eels really don't have many points in them. 8 against the Bulldogs last week, 6 against the Tigers, and 18 against the Storm in the opening game. And aside from their game against the Warriors, the Seagulls have been pretty good defensively. Keep in mind, last week they still did concede 12 against the Raiders. Those points came late in the game. The points against the Cowboys also in that big win came very late. So they can concede those couple of late tries once they've built a bit of a lead. And last week, that game against Canberra, those late 2 tries to the Raiders were what pushed that game for Manly to go over the number. And the final game in the round, the West Tigers against the New Zealand Warriors. Tigers favourites at home, $1.65, -3.5. Looking for 3 straight wins for the first time since 2018. And very interesting, they've come into favourites for this game. Last time they played the Warriors, they were 12.5 point underdogs. The Warriors have won the past 7 versus the Tigers, so a very good record against them. For West Tigers, they're playing very well this year. So far, the statistics tell us they're the number 1 defensive side, which seems crazy if you compare it to previous seasons. And there's going to be some regression from that's not going to continue right throughout the season. So it's just something to keep in mind. Tigers, they've won their past 2 against the Dolphins and Eels. This, though, is definitely the toughest matchup, and they have been underdogs in both of those games. So that concerns me a little bit. And to their credit, the Warriors bring good form into this with wins against the Roosters and Sea. I think this is going to be a close game. 6 of the past 7 head-to-head have been decided by 1 to 12 points. I think we'll get a similar margin here. I can't see either side running out big winners. Tigers have made a little bit of a habit of coming from behind to win games. That's how they beat the Dolphins. And then the game against the Eels was close for the most part of the first half before they built a lead. But I don't think there's going to be a great deal between them. I would definitely be interested in the try-bet market here. Either side 1 to 10, either side 1 to 12. Warriors without Roger Tuivasa. And their previous meetings, their past 2, so round 24 and 2023, so over the past 2 seasons, were decided by 8 points and then 12 points in their last meeting over in New Zealand. We've also seen a trend of unders in this matchup. 4 of the past 5 head-to-head going under the total, so a slight lean towards it being lower scoring. Both sides playing well defensively and have some points in them when they put it together. So yeah, close game, lean towards the unders in the final game of the round. Hopefully this video gave you some insights into the betting trends and how to approach betting on these games. It's really important to have this information to make decisions because it allows you to determine the changes in the odds from their previous meetings and whether those changes are worthwhile. And that's why I record these videos, to make sure that you guys are able to make the best possible bets and profit on the NRL. If you want to use these tools for yourself and see everything I'm betting, definitely click the link in the description and join up into the NRL Best Bets membership. Try it out, see how you can implement a strategy to profit on the NRL season in 2025. And if you haven't already, obviously we're a few weeks into the season now, make sure you've downloaded the 2025 NRL betting guide. It's completely free. That'll give you an insight into how you can use statistics to profit on the NRL. Thanks guys for watching. Stay tuned for the Try Score Trends video, which will be coming out soon.